Yep. That's what you go for.
Yeah, there's a track that you're on when you go. And so like the thing I did love about Full Sail was I learned the what and the how. Like I was deep in it. I left there with, I had 4 pieces of flash fiction published. I had 2 short screenplays finished.
Yeah.
I wrote a feature at the end of my time at Full Sail. Excuse me. It was a very bad feature, but I finished it. It was like 87 pages. It was a horror film.
Is that you got the Jennifer Lawrence story?
Oh yeah.
Did
I tell that story already?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you the last podcast we did, that was like 2 years ago or whatever. You got to go through this because I think it's great.
Okay, so I'm at the end. So I'm at the end of my time at Full Sail, and like I said, I had 4 pieces of flash fiction published. I had 2 short screenplays like ready to go. My plan was to go out to Los Angeles and go start to work on sets and get out there. I had a family friend who lived in LA, so I knew I could go stay somewhere for free for a little bit, get some restaurant jobs, do my thing, go work on some sets, and then make my short films. So the last class that you take at Full Sail is a portfolio class. I don't know how they do it now, but back when I went, it was a portfolio class. So you work on your website, you pull your portfolio together, like everything that you have written, if you have any treatments or log lines or whatever. This woman had gone through the MFA program at one of those prestigious ones out in LA. Awesome woman. She smoked cigarettes and I did at the time too. So we would their kids, all the other people I went to school with were kids. I was a military student, right? I was 24 years old when I graduated, something like that. And so these guys are all 18, 19, 20 years old and no jobs, whatever, no disrespect, but it was just different. So I really connected with the professor. So she and I at after every class would go out and have a cigarette and chat or whatever. So my portfolio was done a week into the class, because I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to LA. I knew what I had, I kind of knew what my voice was, what I want to try to go do. So probably it's a second or third week of class, we're sitting there, and she goes, all right, I'm gonna do an exercise. I want you to write a log line for a film that you have an idea for. So not one that's finished, not one that you've started writing, but one that you have an idea for. And we'll do a little exercise to kind of go around the room and talk about it or whatever. So we wrote 3 log lines, put it in a Crown Royal bag. She passed around the class,
Yeah.
She gets a phone call. She put this whole thing on. She had to have. She gets a phone call during the exercise. And she goes, she says, hello. She goes, yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Hangs up, puts it down, and puts the phone down and goes, does anybody have a log line for a horror film? Did anybody write one for a horror film? And I looked around, nobody said anything. I was like, I did. Mm-hmm. And she goes, are you prepared to pitch it? And I was like, I mean, I can be. What are we doing here? She picks up her phone, she calls that number back. And she goes, yeah. What's your idea? And I was like, well, who is that? And she's like, well, what's your idea? And I was like, well, can I just come pitch it? And she goes, sure. So she puts it on speakerphone and we hear Jennifer Lawrence's voice. Mm-hmm. Turns out that she was Jennifer Lawrence was on Reba or something back in the day, one of those sitcoms, mm-hmm. Back in her first years in LA. And this woman worked on the show as a PA or something, and they became friends. So she puts Jennifer. She goes, she's Jennifer Lawrence. She's looking for a horror script that she wants to produce for her friend Bradley. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I looked at the guy and I was like, Cooper?
Yeah.
You're talking about Bradley Cooper? So she goes, pitch it. So I was like, can I come up there? And she goes, yeah. So she puts her phone down on the corner of the desk and I stand there and I said, hello. She goes, hey, what's your idea? And so I told her the log line and pitched her the idea. Basically the log line it was a modern version of Beauty and the Beast, but if Gaston was a good guy. Mm-hmm. So if the Beast was the bad guy, but Gaston was the good guy. And she goes, oh, that's really interesting. How long would it take you to write it? And I was like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I could sit down and write. She's like, well, if you can get it written in the next week, send it to Mara, and then Mara will send it to me. Mm-hmm. I said, are you serious? And she goes, yeah, Bradley's really interested in looking at horror scripts right now. That's he wants to direct. That's one of the next things that he wants to do. He wants to tackle horror films. If you remember, he was in that movie, Midnight Meat Train.
Oh Jesus!
You remember that movie?
Way back then.
Crazy movie, and I guess like he really likes the horror genre, so like he wanted to start. Obviously, he's gone on to direct incredible movies that have won Oscars and all that stuff, and like produced at a very high level. But this was like before he did A Star Is Born and Joker and Maestro or whatever. So he wanted to start small, I guess, with like an indie horror film. And I was like, all right, sure. So I literally went and like hung up the phone and I looked at Mara and I was like, was that real? Like, is that really her? She goes, yeah, write it and get it to me. So I spent the next week in that class, like in class and then at home, like staying up and I wrote, 87-page horror film. It was terrible. I sent it to her. And she said she read the first 20 pages. Yeah. And this is like a thing you learn when you're working in the narrative space, the Hollywood space, the kind of indie film space is like, most people, when they read scripts, are not going to read the entire thing like right away. Yeah, they'll read the first 20 pages or whatever, kind of do some coverage on it. And so she, she read the first 20 pages, and then she was like, she had some notes on it or whatever, and she's like, yeah, if you finish this up, like send it my way. I just let it go. Like it was a great lesson for me. It's a fun story to tell. Obviously, it's like a kind of a cool, like celeb name drop kind of thing. Yeah. But the lesson that I learned from it was, this is a job, this is a business. And like when you're not just writing things that you want to write, and you're not just like writing for fun, like as you're on your way out of film school or as your way into the industry, like you're writing for people who are going to try to make something. Mm-hmm. And if it's not makeable, then, and if you're not interested in it enough to keep it going, or if you can't dismiss that disinterest enough to get a really quality script written, like you're toast. Yeah.
How high were you though that like week? I mean, dude, you're like, I'm doing it. I'm going. Dude, I was going to Hollywood.
I was in like a fugue state. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I lived with two people. They're married now, roommates. I told them the story. They're like, dude, no way. I'm like, yeah. So I was like up at the kitchen table. Like all night. And I was like, told my dad about it. And he was like, is that real? I was like, I don't know, man. Like it sounded like her. You know, I don't know.
You always read the crazy stories. It's always the success ones you hear, not the failures. But it's like in your head, especially as a filmmaker, you're like, this is it. They're going to find the script. The thing is going to be amazing. Yeah. I'm off to the races. You could be that one lottery ticket.
Yeah, for sure. But those thoughts crossed my mind, but like I also started to like during that process develop a really good relationship with imposter syndrome. Yeah. Because I realized I'm like, holy shit, like I'm writing for Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence right now. And it definitely affected the way that I wrote some of the characters. I was like, maybe Bradley will want to play this one and maybe Jennifer will want to play this one. All of a sudden I started thinking about things in a way that I wasn't prepared for as a, recently separated Air Force veteran, recently or soon to graduate, film school graduate. Like I wasn't ready for that kind of thing. Like I had no idea how to do that. And like, so I really developed a good relationship with imposter syndrome because I definitely felt imposter. I was, like you said, really high at the beginning of that process. It was a slog to finish that script. Yeah. Like I said, it's not very good. I went back and reread it like last year or 2 years ago. There's some good stuff in it. Like there's some good scenes. There's some good dialogue. Like I write pretty good dialogue. There was some, but it just like the story just didn't work and didn't make sense. And then now it's not something I'm interested in going back to. Mm-hmm. So the lesson there was really helpful for me to be like, okay, this is a business. Like these are, if you have to be really honed in. You have to have a really strong craft. You have to have a really strong voice. You have to really know what you're doing here and how you're doing it. And then there's the relationships you're going to have to navigate, and like back to what I was saying about Jack interviewing him a year after I asked to, like golden ticket style, like what if she would have been, oh my gosh, I love this script, I want to buy it, and then I get super high. It's like, oh my gosh, Jennifer Lawrence bought my script or optioned it or whatever. And then I'm kind of sitting around waiting for that. What ended up happening was I just went out to LA, I dropped that script, I started working on sets, and I made my own short films and like got into it and learned it from the ground up, which was, I think looking back, probably the most valuable thing. I would hate to have been somebody who made it early and didn't actually have to grind or struggle with the things that I've had to struggle through in the industry.